I'm excited.
Why's that?
We have an apparel sponsor, Parity Athletic. Such good gear, and it's incredible. I've been enjoying it.
Bro, George came through, messaged us on the Instagram, said he's been following our program for ages. He's getting stronger and more mobile, and he's got this cool gear company called Parry, and he wants to send us some stuff.
And he told me that his mission was to create the best pair of training shorts ever.
Yeah, he wanted something that he could lift and roll in, and that could accommodate thick, muscular thighs and hips.
And that suits us.
Speaks to us.
Also, what I like is I love the colorful design. It actually looks really cool.
I am the most colorful dude on the mats these days, hands down.
Yeah, you get that kind of expression feel. A lot of other jiu-jitsu gear is kind of a bit boring.
Yeah, it's all like
comparison.
grays and blacks and shit. This stuff is the color and the vibrancy.
It makes you stand out. And I think the thing that I've loved about it is just it feels good. It feels good. It looks good. And you, ladies and gentlemen, can get a discount when you go to checkout. If you go to paryathletics.com, when you go to checkout, put in the code Bulletproof20 and you get 20% off. Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. Is CrossFit training good for BJJ? Now, we've said some critical things of CrossFit in the past.
I mean, folks have read the title. They pretty much know what we're going to say.
Well, I don't think they do.
Well, here's the thing, isn't it?
I think we're going to surprise people on this one, Joe.
There's a lot of good that comes from CrossFit.
There is, and you have done a bit of CrossFit in your time, in your life, Joe?
Yeah, I engaged with it quite a lot in the earlier years both of my jiu-jitsu career, but also of CrossFit when it was pretty fresh. And I remember buddy Eric, do you know Eric Mastro?
I know Mastro so well, yeah.
Shout out, good fellow black belt. I remember him telling me like, man, you're an American dude. Yeah, I got a bad American accent, but he's like, have you heard of this CrossFit thing? I was like, no, what is it? It's like, oh, it's this website and they post these workouts every day and they're like really fucking hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, that sounds cool. And I remember we went and did some little workout, like using a small staircase that was out like at North Bondi where he lived. Or maybe he was just telling me about that stair workout that long ago.
Wow.
But that was like my first exposure to it. And I had more friends slowly who were getting into it. And it was this rogue kind of thing where it's like, man, we just go out and do some fucked up shit.
Kind of tough, yeah.
Yeah. And I think like at the time I loved it. Like, and it was so intense and so like, it was so full on. It was good for jiu-jitsu. Like it was, it's pushing you to a limit, right?
Yeah.
Which is just giving, like it's just taking you to that place similar to where you go to in a really intense role.
Yes.
However, I wasn't able to maintain it. I was too beat up from those sessions.
Yes. I was going to say that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, when you look at photos of CrossFitters, they're fucking monsters.
Yeah, they're in shape.
They're like, wow, men and women, these people they look different, right?
Yeah.
Built different. I guess the thing is, it's like elite jiu-jitsu people as well. You look at them, you're like,
my lady Misa's a CrossFitter. Built different.
She is. She goes hard. She goes, but it's also a mentality, respect to that. And I think there's actually a lot of good that can be drawn from people who train CrossFit. It creates beasts. It trains all these different qualities, right? You've got body Olympic lifting, you've got gymnastics, you've got a whole bunch of body weight, and then you've got all these bloody hectic amounts of ENOMs and MRAPs, and you're like, oh my God. If you don't know what I'm talking about,
Fun workout formats.
If you've never done a CrossFit workout, you're in for the shock of your life. It'll take your soul. Because especially if you don't know how many calories you can burn on an assault bike, this is something you'll learn to hate or love, depending on the intensity of you as a person. I was drawn to CrossFit because there was a guy called Richard at our gym, and he was into it hard. And we were like, oh yeah, we all consider ourselves
at your jiu-jitsu academy?
No. At the personal training studio I used to work at in Melbourne, and he was just like, are you across this CrossFit? And we were like, nah, what? And so he put us all through a workout, and we all died. And there was two of us who were like, let's do it again. And it was just one of these things where it was like, whenever he'd be like, hey, anyone want to do this like workout of the day? Everyone's like, oh, I'm a bit busy. Oh, no, I can't. But like myself and Chris, my business partner at the time, he was like, yeah, we'll do it. Because we both had that kind of masochistic streak.
Yeah.
To want to like just push so hard you're fucked up. Like you can barely.
You almost die.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. You just literally feel like you're dying because you're just pushing your limit. But there is a cost.
So what is that, so what's that thing like that? Because I think that's what it really does have in common with jiu-jitsu, not so much in terms of why it might be beneficial for jiu-jitsu, but what's very similar about them is it's this struggle. It's a shared struggle.
Yeah, definitely.
You get through the workout, you feel like you're going to die, you don't die, you survive, and that is in that simple exchange of thought I was going to die, didn't, here I am, is great happiness.
Yeah, the intensity,
like elation.
relief, and
yeah, it's like when you do a comp class or something and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to die, and then you don't die.
But the problem with CrossFit is the poor harder mentality. Now, some people might look at it as good if you're an office worker and you do nothing and you're like, this is what I can do to express intensity. That's great. But if you also do jiu-jitsu, if you're already like strangling people, they're strangling you, you're getting rinsed there, and then you go to the gym and you're getting broken down there, for me, what I see in this is just like it's very easy. Like, the classic saying is if you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And if you're someone who likes to work hard and go hard, you're like, I go hard at jiu-jitsu, so I go hard at CrossFit.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen this firsthand that this was actually a bit of a mistake. So Michael Lange, who is a 3-time world champion, before he won his 3rd world championship, I was in Brazil, I was training with him. They were doing CrossFit.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, because there was a CrossFit box around the corner. One of the guys who was a brown belt in the gym owned the box, and they didn't really have an S&C program. So they're like, well, jiu-jitsu's hard, CrossFit's hard, makes sense.
Yeah.
Just CrossFit. But they're doing a lot of kipping chins. I can't remember what workout it was, but it was like kipping chins, rower. It was like a K as fast as you could, and then you had to run a certain distance and back, and you had to just as many times as you could in 20 minutes or something. It was terrible in terms of how it made you feel. Michael, being the competitive guy he was, and also being a bit of the alpha dog, he didn't want to lose that, so he shredded. He tore both hands doing kipping chins.
Ripped skin.
Yeah, just ripped. Like
classic CrossFit badge of honor.
Oh my God. And look, if you've ever torn, a callus on your palm from deadlifting or anything else, you know how sensitive that is. Now imagine you've done all 4 parts of your palm, right? Like each major knuckle of your hand, you've torn that. Michael Lange was famous for his spider guard. He couldn't close his grips or his hands for like weeks. So that's then held up his training massively. And this is the major drawback I see is like, even though it can bring out this intensity and it can create all these amazing athletic qualities, it doesn't complement jiu-jitsu. It kind of conflicts with jiu-jitsu. That's my take on it.
Yeah. So I think like in terms of the physical trauma from the training, it definitely conflicts.
Yeah.
And we have to respect that's the part of jiu-jitsu too, right? Is there is trauma that's associated with it for on your body. And that's why we're so big on like having a practice outside of that, doing some strength training, some stretching that helps to alleviate that trauma and help it to repair and for you to be less affected by it next time.
Yeah.
Whereas CrossFit, it's like double trauma. So you get jiu-jitsu trauma and then you go to the place where you're like, oh, I'm doing my strength and my flexibility work via CrossFit.
Yeah.
No, you're going into another room full of trauma.
Yeah.
And it's like then you're just digging the hole deeper and deeper. I mean, I think in a perfect world, if you were able to, I don't know, had some miraculous recoverability, then potentially it could work, right?
Juice. You like juice? I love the juice.
Yeah, juice would work well. But most of us don't. Here's the way I view it is that you only, like playing a sport, we've used the analogy before of collecting firewood and burning firewood.
Sure.
And playing a sport is burning firewood.
It is.
And jiu-jitsu is burning and CrossFit is also burning. So, so you end up, like I think what you see often is that a jiu-jitsu person will find their way to a CrossFit gym because whatever it's convenient, or a friend said, hey, you'll get in shape if you come here. And they're instantly drawn to it because of that intensity.
Sure.
They're like, man, this is awesome. I've never felt so fit, and it's probably true. Like your results in that way are probably going through the roof, but it usually doesn't last longer than like 3 months.
And this is the tough thing. Like I know, shout out to Ben Schwartz of Schwartz's CrossFit in Victoria. His team was a championship team Schwartz's CrossFit. They've been to the CrossFit Games 3 or 4 times, their team, and Ben himself is a real unit. I knew him through kettlebells when I first met him, and he now does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He might be a purple or brown belt now. A lot of fit units in that gym. Competitive CrossFit gym, but plagued by injuries. I believe, so before I knew anything about CrossFit or Jiu-Jitsu, the most injured people I knew were triathletes. Like swimming, biking, and running. You put that all together, that is a fucking problematic combination. And it was just a made-up sport.
And you sit in an office all day as well.
Yeah. And typically it's a lot of office workers being like,
love it.
BRW 500, I'm hitting that. You know, like it's like, wow, okay, cool. But here's the thing. It's a made-up sport. Someone just threw together swimming, biking, and running because it's like, yo, we live in Hawaii. We're trying to work out who's the fittest. Let's get it.
Why you got to throw Hawaii under the bus?
Well, no, because I was studying.
50% of our listeners are from the United States.
1% Hawaii. Shout out. Aloha. Mahalo. No, I think it's like one of those things that CrossFit.
Sound like a white guy on tour.
I am.
Mahalo.
I am.
Aloha.
Aloha. Yeah, sorry, I can't even do a Hawaiian accent. But what I was going to say with that is CrossFit is a made-up sport. People are like, yo,
all sports are made up.
I understand that, but I'm saying it's a sport that was made up very recently. And it's like, how can we take all these things and make it hard? Olympic lifting traditionally was not done for high reps.
Yeah.
It was a low rep thing.
Pussies.
Well, it's like,
show me the reps. Get that 1,000-meter run.
It's just taking all these hard things and just jamming them together doesn't equate to like a good idea.
Yeah, they did I get your point. I mean, with CrossFit. So we should do this for people who are like, what is CrossFit? I think for the uninitiated, it can just seem like, isn't that just when a workout, when you just do a mix of things? And yes, but CrossFit itself is actually a brand and a sport.
An ideology.
Yeah, an ideology. It's got this whole thing. And so what they've done is they've combined bodyweight strength training, or gymnastics as they call it, weightlifting, and then like conditioning work.
Olympic lifting specifically, as well as kettlebells.
Any kind of like deadlifting, sandbag, it's all in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And their whole goal is to find the fittest people on earth.
That's what
now, there was a bit of a split with it because that was originally the thing was we want to find the fittest people on earth. And arguably they've found them. Like year after year, the CrossFit Games finds amazing specimens. But I think in the first part of its life, the CrossFit, if you went to a CrossFit gym whereby it wasn't about the games, it was just about people who are looking for an alternative to the big Globo gym they go to.
Getting after it.
It was just a place to go and get fit. In that initial period though, like with Jiu-Jitsu and a lot of Jiu-Jitsu academies, the sport of it would inform what the general practitioners are doing.
Sure.
So it's kind of like you turn up at your Jiu-Jitsu academy like, hey guys, Gordon's using this mad, leg lock sequence. That's what we're working on today because that's what's working in comp.
Right.
The competition was informing the training for the general population.
Yeah.
And there's an argument, less so with jiu-jitsu, but definitely in fitness, whereby what the pros are doing in the sport is not actually relevant to the general practitioners.
No.
Like they need more simplified, basic, accessible stuff because that's kind of meeting them where they're at, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think in recent years, CrossFit's moved away from that. They pulled a lot of funding out of the games.
Yes.
And they said, actually, we're just focusing on like the gym owners and making sure the gym's doing a great job.
Of course,
blah,
because
blah, blah.
that's your user base, right?
That's right. But the problem is that, when the sport is informing the training, then the training is naturally going to be pretty fucking intense.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah, like pretty wild. And as we know, sports are not designed with the health of the player in mind.
No.
They are designed, it's designed to squeeze as much juice as possible from every player on the field
and who can
competitor,
who can rise to the top.
Exactly, to reach new heights year after year. So yeah, I think that's sort of like where a lot of the problem with it lies.
Yeah. And here's the thing. CrossFit has the same problems as Jiu-Jitsu. We have a few elite who are doing amazing things. And then we have a lot of just everyday people who want to do something cool. And CrossFit is an amazing community. Like the community feel, if you're part of your box, like a CrossFit gym, that's what gets people in. And I think that's what gets people in about Jiu-Jitsu. It's this community and the togetherness, and we always do stuff together, and the leader of the box, and it's awesome. Like there's so much that is good about CrossFit that is similar to jiu-jitsu. Here's the downside. There's also rampant steroid use and dudes at the top getting popped for using steroids, and maybe women at the top who never got popped who should have. Tears and clip. But yeah, I mean, anyway, shoot.
JT just firing off accusations.
I'm just shooting left,
I think
right,
she's
and center.
Cuban.
Oh, I heard that. No,
Yeah.
I think she's Australian. Shame, I know your name. But here's the deal, my friends. Elite Olympic lifters coming into a sport, if you're not an elite Olympic lifter, you're not going to do those numbers, you know? Like it's trying to be your idols is a trap, because you've got to work with what you've got. And the thing about CrossFit is it's this idea of you have to go as hard as you can, and you're competing with the person next to you. And actually, when it comes to fitness and working in the gym, that's actually a recipe for failure, because you're not training for where you're at. You're training for where your partner is at. And you might, on that one workout, beat them or get yourself there, but now you've got a shoulder injury, and you know what I mean? And this is similar in jiu-jitsu, right?
If you're trying to win, you're generally not focused on doing the best technique and controlling yourself. And
this is what CrossFit is kind of famous for too, is that there have been many incidences of complete just gym fuckery, of people just doing poor quality reps. Now, you to be at the highest level in CrossFit, you've got to have great technique. There's plenty of people doing lots of terrible reps, and the same is true of jiu-jitsu, right? We see the black belts, and we see how amazing they are, and then we see the expert 4-stripe white belts not really being as effective as they could. So
you know the other thing that's interesting there that is a clash, and this kind of doesn't sound that important, but I think it actually is like a legitimate sticking point for people who try to do both, is that both CrossFit and jiu-jitsu have a strong community emphasis.
They do.
As in, it's the shared struggle.
We live this.
You go through this trauma week in, week out with the people in the gym, and you become tighter and closer to those people. It's actually very hard to be part of two gym communities at once. It's just like, hey, we're getting together at the gym on Sunday. Coach is going to open up. We're just going to do some lifting. And you're like, oh, but I got open mat on Sunday. Oh, shit. And then you don't go to the open mat. And like, hey, man, you weren't an open mat. You're always there. What's going on? You're like, oh, I was just hanging out with my CrossFit friends. Like,
you're cheating on jiu-jitsu for CrossFit.
You got one foot out. Now they start to talk a bit of shit about you. JT used to be here every Sunday, but since he started CrossFit,
he's a CrossFitter now.
Yeah, and it's actually a bit of a clash. Everyone's pretty busy. It's already hard to get to those social events and things that happen around just your regular sort of Monday to Friday training.
Yeah.
So I think that's a legit concern.
It is. And the other thing I'd say on this too is that I had actually said to you a long time ago, I said, hey man, I'm thinking I might do the CrossFit Games.
Oh, I remember.
And you were like, dude,
For real?
You can't just walk in on that. There's some fit, strong people down there.
I was telling Lisa about that last night. She had a giggle.
Yeah. Because the thing was, I had looked at it and I went, could I do this? Because I like crazy intense things and I like getting a bit fucked up with workouts. I'm like, and I'd done a few, and I'd done Fran a couple of times, and it's
like one of their benchmark workouts.
It's rated as being, it's quite famous because he was the other link with CrossFit. It was the link to military, people who are service people, and they'd come back and they're really fit, really strong, and certain workouts were famous being named after certain people or people who'd fallen soldiers, stuff like this. It's really cool in a lot of ways. And I had it in me, just because I'm very competitive, I'm like, I want to get in there and just do some fucked up workouts and just beat people at their own game, just from a psychological point of view. But it's its own sport. You can't just walk in and think you're going to do well.
And I want to jump into collegiate wrestling. I think I'm going to take down Jordan Burroughs.
We don't have a Jordan Burroughs here in Australia.
I just need to lock my hands around those legs and I'm good.
Bro, if I can get that body lock, it's over. No.
Jordan doesn't know.
No, but here's the interesting thing about that is it's so much work. I think people just don't get it because people are like, it's just working out. To be great at the sport of CrossFit, which is what I was thinking about, it's its whole other thing. And if you're trying to get good at jiu-jitsu, it is hard enough just to get good at jiu-jitsu. To then go and train a whole nother incredibly complicated sport, you're really setting yourself up to kind of fail at both. That's how I look at it. So even though there's plenty of benefits to CrossFit, the downside is it's a demanding mistress. You want to try and love jiu-jitsu and have CrossFit as your side chick, you are going to get eaten up. You cannot do that. I honestly believe, even though
Glad you came around to this line of thinking.
I never went there, guys.
What was it that made you reconsider that?
I went down to Schwartz's CrossFit, and I did a couple of workouts with the guys, and I was just so wrecked I couldn't train jiu-jitsu. I went to jiu-jitsu and I was so smoked. And this was the day after. It wasn't the same day. I wasn't like doing CrossFit on the same day as doing jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I did the CrossFit workout, and then the next day I couldn't train properly, and then I'm getting everyone at training beating my ass. And I think it was just my need to want to be competitive at jiu-jitsu has just been so strong that I couldn't suck at jiu-jitsu in the name of being good at CrossFit.
Yeah, right.
That's really what it came down to. And I was just dipping my toe. You know, I was hanging out with some of those people and being like, yeah, can I beat these people? Could I be better at whatever than this? And it's like, no, you can't. Like you're kidding yourself in terms of how demanding it is. It's not as simple as I'm going for a jog around the corner. So this is what I wanted to say. And this is the misunderstanding, because we've had people kind of, I guess, shoot shots at our program going, oh, it's too basic. It's too simple. Where's the explosive rotational work? Where's the gi pull-ups? Where's the practical jiu-jitsu stuff? It's like, guys, what you should know is that the training you're doing outside of jiu-jitsu should be there to help counteract it and complement it. So when you come back to do it, you're not fucked up. You want to get on the mats and feel good so you can maximize what you're doing there. You know, just like Joe's saying about cutting the wood, like you want to make sure those activities you're doing outside of jiu-jitsu are not actually detracting from your ability to be good on the mat. And that's really what we're getting at here. This isn't about bashing CrossFit. This is like, yeah, I mean, go do it, but let's save you the time and the heartache and the shoulder injuries and the poor reps and go, you know what? Like, if you love jiu-jitsu, you're going to go do things that support it. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's like people who work too much and then they got a shitty family life. They're like, yeah, but I work to support my family. It's like, yeah, well, yeah, that's a tough juggle, right? But if you really wanted to support the thing you love, spending time is how you show love, right? And so really what I've come to...
Depends on your love language.
That's true. But I'm saying that like the most powerful things we have in our life are time and energy, right? And so how you allocate those is really important. And, you know, a CrossFit workout every now and again is fun to...
Yeah.
Get fucking tuned up a bit.
Stand and bang.
Yeah, it's tough. But trying to do that week in, week out, I think is tough to sustain.
If I'm trying to think of like where CrossFit could fit quite well, I think back to like some of those older workouts where the movements were very simple. It was like body weight squats, push-ups, pull-ups, kettlebell swings, basic shit, you know. And then maybe like if you had access to a gym, there might be some deadlifts or some back squatting and, you know, and I think that style of stuff, I mean, that stuff's great. And I think if you
it works.
It works. It's low skill, like the movements aren't highly complex. If you look at where CrossFit sort of started going from the very beginning, really, and where it is now, it's like it's very high skill. The Olympic weightlifting, working on the rings, muscle ups and shit, all the kipping stuff, like all of that stuff has a high skill component, and that's like, you just don't need it. If you're training jiu-jitsu and your goal is to get fitter and stronger for jiu-jitsu, you don't need to do that shit where you're having to put time into skill development for a whole different sport. You should be focusing skill development on the mats.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe I'm sure there are some CrossFit gyms out there that are like a bit more watered down, a bit lighter, a bit old school. They don't go super hard. It's just like functional movements done at a moderate to high intensity. Yeah. I can absolutely get around that. But I think the majority of what I've seen with it these days is that it's pretty high intense and there is a lot of time on that skill development. I just think it's not worth it for a jiu-jitsu player.
And I mean, even if you go to look at the highest level, it's only been, if we're talking about champions in CrossFit, only Matt Fraser has been able to repeat, right? Almost no kind of male athlete.
Oh, Rich Froning repeated.
So Rich, okay. So, but if you look at jiu-jitsu at the highest level, a champion can be dominant for a number of years. You know, that an individual can stay in the sport win multiple championships, retire, and still be good.
Yeah.
I don't know where's Danimal now. You know, where are these guys who were?
Oh, Rich is still, I see he's still doing teams events.
Oh, yeah?
He's still a monster.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, interesting.
And I think Matthew Fraser, I know he busted
just
his knees, we spoke
retired.
about, but I think he's still a monster too.
Okay.
Like, but it's different, right?
I don't think there's longevity in CrossFit. I think there's longevity in Jiu-Jitsu. That's what I'm putting out there right now.
Oh, fuck, I don't think there's longevity in either of them.
Oh, no. Well, no, but there's plenty. Look, we just had World Masters, right?
Yeah, but they're all taped up and fucking.
Yeah, sure. But I'm saying that there's people still doing Jiu-Jitsu at 65, and maybe it's a little bit older than CrossFit, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, can you do, you know, there's not like a World Masters for CrossFit, is there?
There is.
Tell me.
I don't know, but Meese keeps her on it. There's like 80, they got seniors events. They got 80-year-olds at the games and shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's wild, man. Like, I think, you know, it's the same as any sport, right? If you really love it, and you're going to cop the injuries, you're going to keep doing it, you know? I don't think that's a strong argument because I think Jits is so fucked on the body. CrossFit's fucked, Jits is super fucked.
Yeah. I mean, they're both. What can we say? There's a price to pay for all these things.
That's what it is, right? Like, you to play the game, you pay a price, you know, irrespective.
Yeah. No, you can't hide from that. So anyway, if you're out there and you're considering training CrossFit, I think that the most important thing is to look at what available energy and time do you have, and can you bounce back from what you're doing? And you've got to just ask yourself, doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, if my goal is to be good at jiu-jitsu, is this helping me achieve that? And I think that's the most important question you can answer.
Yeah.
Yup.
Big love to all the CrossFit fans. We'll see you guys next time.
Shout out. Keep it up.